listening to the Brain Profits Podcast. Are you ready for the show? We are, so let's go. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Brain Profits. I'm Doug Mapp, cognitive development professional and entrepreneur, and we're here with Dr.
Philippe Duyon, board certified neurologist, author of the book Neuroplasticity, Your Brain's Superpower, and creator of the online course Take Charge of Your Brain. And we also have Stacey Busby.
Stacey Busby, executive and leadership coach. And this episode, we have a fabulous guest. Doug, do you want to introduce Kerrie?
Yeah. We need to have that one of those alerts that goes blah, 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 blah. Anyways, we are here with Kerrie Lovins, I'm going to call you an expert on meditation.
Nice, right? Thank you.
Yeah, so we are here today to talk about meditation, specifically what is meditation, a couple of different types of meditation, and then, kind of her journey of getting into meditation. What does it take? What is she doing? What are you guys doing? So anyways, let's start there. Kerrie, tell the people who are you?
I am Kerrie Lovins, like you said, and I am a meditation coach here in Colorado Springs. I also work up in Denver a little bit, and I have a podcast, and it's under Oneness Unfolding, where I guide people through meditations and support them on their meditation journey.
Awesome. So how did you go ahead.
Yeah. How did you get into it? I checked you out, Kerrie, before you were coming in on LinkedIn, and meditation hasn't been the focus of your life up until recently.
Correct.
Tell us how you got here.
Well, how I got here was a bit of a journey. Obviously, everybody's meditation journey, I think, is different, right? And mine started with an amazing friend of mine that led me through a meditation. And from there, it just seemed to continue to develop for me. And so I've been meditating for over 30 years now. And I was in the nonprofit business. I worked for a large food bank in New Mexico. I worked with an animal shelter up in Denver. And I love the nonprofit mission. And I think during the pandemic, I was doing a lot of writing, which I've always done. I have binders and binders of writing just on spiritual thoughts and meditations. And I just started thinking, why do I spend all my free time doing this and all my work time doing this? And so I decided to take the leap into that, because I really think that we're in a bit of a crisis as far as our mental well-being as a society. And meditation is an amazing tool to help support people move out of a space with a lot of anxiety, sleeplessness, pain. I think meditation really supports us in a lot of health ways, as well as our own connections, our purpose, and you can take it as far as you want. You know what I mean? I think that's the beauty of meditation, is that you can make it what you need it to be. If you need calming, it's a calming presence. It's just engaging with it and taking steps into it. And so that's how I kind of started my journey. And I made this jump to do it. And I had several writings that I started to put together, and I realized it formed a journey. And I started to put it into a podcast form. And eventually I think it'll become a small book, but it's just part of the process.
Or a big book.
Or a big book, or multiple books, or who knows how that turns out.
Well, Kerrie, I think you're going to be really, really proud of me. Because I meditated this morning. Wow. I would put $5 that I am the only person besides you, Kerrie, on this panel that has meditated this morning.
I'm pulling up.
I didn't even realize we were talking about meditation this morning. So it's not like I did it because I knew you were coming on.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So I often recommend meditation to the patients that I see for all types of neurological issues.
Right.
And one of the things that I get from people is that they say, well, I don't know how to meditate. So if somebody were to say to you, I don't know how to meditate, what would you say to them?
Hold on, before you answer that question, Kerrie, we have to collect the bills. Stacey, do you Oh,
Stacy
Philippe,
did not.
$5.
Stacy did not meditate this morning. You could tell by the look on her face. She did not meditate this morning.
I'm getting my insight timer out. Guided meditation for mornings.
Ooh.
Right, but
Boom.
that's an app. That doesn't prove that she did it.
What?
No.
Okay,
I'll find it.
That's
I'll
very
find
different.
my minutes.
Look,
It's on here.
Look, I meditated so well this morning.
You
I went back into the 1950s and I have no color.
So you just got to be the best, since it wasn't true that you weren't the only one besides Kerrie that's meditated.
And time traveling, let me just say, time traveling could be, you know, a result of meditation.
That's right. Yep. See, look at that. Look at that.
All right, Kerrie, go ahead.
Yeah, let's pull this back to Kerrie.
So tell me again the question. I'm sorry, I got distracted.
Okay.
What would you say to someone who says to you that they do not know how to meditate?
Okay, I would say, you know, honestly, I believe we're all born with it. I really do. I know it takes retraining your mind to re-engage with that, but meditation to me is about breath. It's starting with a breath and bringing your focus back. And I know it's hard because the world wants us to go in a million different directions, and we have to reclaim back our presence. And I think the beauty of apps, and there's bells that can remind us and things that bring us back to that moment. We can meditate, but it takes effort. Like, it doesn't just happen. Like, you don't just meditate and you totally get it. It could be, I mean, we could do an exercise like box breathing, right? Where you're taking 4 breaths in, holding it for 4 breaths, releasing it for 4 breaths, leaving it empty for 4 breaths. That's a meditation. Breathing is a meditation. And so it just depends on what you want to get out of it. Do you want to get reflection, wellness? What is it you hope to get out of it? Because that's where you'll put your focus then. Maybe you just want to start with a breath, and that's just your present moment focus. And you've started meditation right there.
And I've personally used meditation at times to actually bring my blood pressure down when it's been high. And I've had other people do the same thing when their blood pressures are up. Instead of saying, here's, you know, a medication that may temporarily bring it down. It's like, listen, you can bring your blood pressure down whenever you want. Just start focusing on your breath and start taking some deep breaths and just sit in the silence and do that. And it's amazing how quickly it comes down.
Can I ask how you started?
Yeah, so I started meditating, and I need to be better in terms of the consistency. So there are times where I am very consistent, and I am there meditating, you know, multiple times a day, doing that for weeks at a time. And then there are times when I'm not as consistent. But I actually started this when I got divorced. I did a huge reevaluation of the life that I was living, and potentially what the things that potentially led to my divorce. And I became much more spiritual, and I learned that I needed to be much more in tune with who I was, and I really needed to sit in the silence instead of being always part of the rat race and the crazy hustle and bustle of New York. And I remember, I think Oprah and Deepak, Oprah were releasing a 21-day meditation challenge. And so I did that challenge. And so that's how I got started. This was a few years ago.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, everybody's journey is so different, right? Like, everybody gets led into it for different reasons. And I think it's the same as exercise, right? Like, we all know it's good for us.
Yeah.
But what is it that inspires us to do it, right? What engages us with it? And I think
that's a great question. The question to ask you is, what inspired you to get started 30 years ago?
Right.
And I wouldn't have thought you were, you know, that old.
I know, right? Right.
Wow, Doug.
It's awful when I thought about it, because I've been saying it's been 20 years and I realize it's 30.
It's okay.
But whatever, it doesn't matter. Age is just a thing. It's a mindset. But really, it was probably my journey of self-discovery of myself. You know, I was probably in a complicated relationship that I was moving out of, I guess very similar, right? And I was finding my independence. And I was getting ready to move to Las Vegas. And it's the first time I had really moved out on my own, did my own thing. And a friend of mine was like, hey, let's meditate together before you go. And I said, okay. And it really opened the doors to me. And it opened the doors to me to my own self-discovery of meditation, because I wasn't told how to do it. And I think that's key. Like, I think some people need specific, a lot of people learn in different ways. And so a step-by-step instruction is helpful. For me, it was like opening a door and saying, this is what it looks like. Now, where do you want to take it from here? And it really blossomed within me to find a lot of discoveries within myself of how do I heal things within myself? How do I find my balance? How do I find my way forward? I need clarity sometimes, all these distractions trying to take me in a million different directions, and I just needed focus. And so I just continued to develop that practice over the years, and I found myself with this amazing practice that includes journaling and walking meditations, and I'm now engaging other people in their own meditation process. And I don't know if Dr. Philippe had an experience of getting to meditate with other people in the beginning, but that's a powerful thing to be able to sit with other people in that space and meditate together.
Yeah, so actually there are studies that show if you get large groups of people meditating together, the stock markets do better. Crime goes down throughout the world. So meditation is a very powerful thing for the individual, but especially when it's done as a group.
Yes.
Kerrie, when I was a yoga instructor, oftentimes I would get folks in the Shavasana, time for stillness, quiet, and even in the short meditation at the end of the class, they would say, I hate that. I am not good at it. My mind goes crazy. It's just not for me. What would you say to the doers of the group that might be listening, that might be saying those same things when they attempt meditation because they are told it's good for them?
I have a funny video out. I don't know if any of you guys have had a chance to see it. It's the meditation coach. And I think what it speaks to, and the reason we put that together, was because we all sometimes have a critic within us that says we can't, it's uncomfortable, it doesn't make sense. I even think that some might come from a scientific side too, and even say, that's just not meaningful for me. That doesn't make sense for me. And so there's different ways that people block that flow, right? And I think it's scary. I think it's scary to go into some of those spaces. When we sit quietly, we have to face ourselves, right? We start to face ourselves and challenges that we have within ourselves, and it becomes uncomfortable. And the mind can kick in and start saying, this doesn't make any sense. You can't do this. Just stop. It's better if you just don't engage. But the truth is, I've seen the funny meme where it's like, what does meditation look like? And there's this perfectly centered person, and they're perfectly balanced. And that's an illusion. You know what I mean? Like, you get there, sure, but that's not necessarily where it starts. It's this crazy feeling like there is so much happening in my brain that I don't even know where to start. And I would say, just start with your breath. Just honor your breath and listen to it, and let that be a guide for you.
Yeah. Now, I gotta ask a question, because this race that we're in, especially in our culture here, is about results. Everybody wants to have some type of result. What is the result for the meditation doer or thinker or seeker? Like, so if somebody's not new, people listening, it's like, okay, why should I give meditation a try? What's the result out of that?
Well, I bet Dr. Philippe would have lots of answers for that too. I know there's lots of chemical responses that happen within the brain. There's the release of dopamine, serotonin levels change, melatonin, so you sleep better. You could feel a little more relaxed. You could have a little less anxiety. And what I love about what you guys are doing is, building up the mind, because the mind is so powerful. But we want to, from my perspective is, I want to engage my passion with my mind, right? I want to make myself whole. And I feel like if I only focus on developing, academic skills, right? So when I took calculus in college, I actually loved calculus, and that sounds hideous, right? It sounds hideous, but I loved it. But at first I didn't love it. It took time for my mind to open to it. And I remember the day it clicked. And I feel like meditation is like that. When you meditate, something clicks inside and you have access to more of your mind and your spirit. And that was important for me. And I love that I could connect all of myself and become a momentum in that. Because as you train the mind, I think if scientists did more meditation, it was a more common thing, that we could solve so many more problems, right? Because you have these amazing minds, you connect it with this passion and the connections that form when you meditate, and we lead ourselves forward as a country and as a human race, honestly.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And you had said before that we all have these critics inside of us.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've got a nickname for my critic, my
Uh-huh.
inside critic. I call it Doug. I usually turn it off
That's
by turning the
funny.
Zoom off, but
Wow, that's good. That's good.
but you're absolutely right in terms that there's a lot of changes that go on in the brain when somebody meditates. And it actually, people who meditate 15, 20 minutes a day, we actually see structural changes that occur in the brain.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of us who are more spiritual, we would say that meditation connects you to the universal intelligence, whether you call that universal intelligence God or by some other name.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for myself that when I've come up with ideas that have helped me to overcome challenges or some things that have helped me change my life, it's never been in those moments where I have been consciously working hard.
Right.
It's been in those moments literally where I've been meditating or sitting in the moment. And so there's something about that that allows you to connect with solutions, whether you're getting it from the universal intelligence or you want to say that you're just getting it from yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a lot of people feel that when they are meditating, they're supposed to, their minds are supposed to be empty. That's what I get from a lot of patients. I don't know how to clear my mind. And I'm like, well, you're not going to clear your mind. Like, I don't know anybody who clears their mind. Maybe if there's some really high level meditator,
Exactly.
right? But like, it's allowing yourself for the thoughts to come and just to easily kind of float through,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Or if there's a thought that's stay, maybe you try to find some way on focusing on something else if you don't like that particular thought.
Right.
But yeah, I think people just don't know what they're supposed to do. And because they don't know what they're supposed to do, they really struggle with it.
Right. Yeah, it's fearful, right? Because we want an instruction book. And,
Yep.
And there are, but I think you can engage with it on so many different levels. We can absolutely do box breathing together, and that's an
Yep.
entry into it. But if you want to open your mind to reflections, that's different. And calming the mind is so difficult. I like to suggest to people putting up a do not disturb sign. And I love that you've labeled your distraction, right? Understanding that it's there and we all have them. And it's all blamed on you, Doug.
Which is funny because we've not known each other that long of a time. So, this self-discovery he has is quite new and fresh. Maybe it's a good thing that I did show up in his life. Now, I was going to say, or ask the question, right? How often should the new person, who may want to get involved in meditation, since you already talked about the why, how often should they be engaging in this exercise?
I think that's dependent on the person, right? And the level they want. It's no different than like we're talking about exercise. The more you exercise, the more benefits you're going to see, right? You're building this brain muscle, right? And so if you do it once a month, you're going to get the same results if you go to the gym once a month, right? But if you engage in it daily, weekly, whatever your method is, whatever you can train yourself to do. I started with one of the most meaningful transitions for me was when I held a thought and I kept that thought for the whole week. And I would just reflect on that one thought for the whole week. Because I think we're like squirrel, right? We want to go down all these paths. We want to think all these things. And if we could just focus our mind just a little bit on meditation and say, okay, I'm going to breathe. I'm just going to stop and breathe 5 times a week. I'm going to let myself do this. I'm going to meditate on this one thought that I've had. Something came to my mind and I want to ponder this question. It might be about myself. It might be about the universe. And keep that one thought through the whole week and re-engage with it. I think that's power, because there's so many apps out there that say, let's do this one and then go on to this one and then go on to this one. I would suggest just finding a steady thought. And I think that leads you forward. So a long answer to a simple question, try meditating when you wake up in the morning, 10 minutes every day for 5 days.
2 minutes.
2
if
minutes.
That's what it takes to get you started, to stay committed to it.
Yeah. I mean, you did, Dr. Philippe, the 21-day challenge, you know.
That's
so
how
it's something that engages you, that keeps you going, and then you find something within it, and then pretty soon time doesn't matter. You know what I mean? I can honestly meditate for, a couple of hours. I can meditate solid for an hour easily. And it just becomes that. And I don't think of time anymore. But in the beginning, I had to, right? I had to set a schedule for myself to remember.
cool stuff. It's kind of how I got stuck on pastries. I held pastries in my head for too long.
Yeah, if you think about it all day long, you're gonna gain weight, I bet too.
And the next thing you have end tables with Debbie cakes in it. That could happen.
So perhaps I should say a meaningful thought. Not that pastries aren't meaningful.
That's a joke to a old episode. Anyways.
Well, I think it's amazing, right? That at least for myself, there are times when I forget to breathe. And I see that in a lot of patients. Like, you can literally go days and forget to breathe. And obviously you're kind of breathing through your nose, right? But you're not taking those deep breaths. And it speaks to, I think, the stress of the world that we live in. Because the reality is that when you are able to breathe, you are signaling to your brain that you are safe, right? Because if you think of this from the times of early humans, and they're escaping from predators and chasing prey, you don't have time to breathe if saber-tooth is trying to attack you, right? And so when you are able to take deep breaths, you're telling your brain that you are safe, and in turn, your brain is telling the rest of your body that you're safe, and that allows you to relax. That brings down your heart rate, that brings down your blood pressure. And so focusing on the breath is incredibly powerful for the entire body.
Right. Because we have so many stresses now in society, right? That we want to say that aren't stresses, but it's not a saber-tooth tiger, but we have all these stresses happening every day outside of us, alarms going off and deadlines to meet. And we've created all these new stresses.
Yeah, 24/7 we've got stresses, whether it's bills or, I even tell people when I talk about being traumatized, that you may not realize it, but when you are walking down the street and you see somebody homeless, that is traumatic, right? There is something very unnatural about that. And you're right, whether it is alarms, whether it is cars going by, it's bills, it's your job, it's your family, it's social media, it's this and that. We're surrounded by stress.
Yep.
So, Kerrie, we're gonna have to wrap it up. Thank you for your time that you've given us today. You've been very gracious with it. But we gotta ask. We got 2 big questions for you, right? The first one is, what one tip do you have for people on how to stay engaged in the meditation process? So you already told us how to get started, but how do you stay engaged so you can go beyond the one time every 3 weeks that you may meditate, like Philippe has done and try to prove today with? How do you stay engaged?
I say that everybody has different ways to stay engaged, right? There's no one formula. It's find what works for you, because it is a journey. I believe meditation is a journey to know yourself more fully. And so what is it that engages you? What motivates you? Find that reason. You know, maybe it's your health, maybe it's spirituality. There's reasons. What brings you into that space, and honor that space. And I think respect the journey, right? Respect it. It takes time and it does take effort, but it's breathing. You know what I mean? We can all do it. We can all breathe, stop and breathe.
Cool. So thank you for that. What's the most influential or interesting book that you've read over the last couple of months that you are, and what's your main takeaway from that?
Well, you know, I'm re-engaging with a book that I used to love that used to get read to me when I went to yoga class, and it's Mark Nepo's The Awakening. And I love that book because it has short reflections that you can read and meditate on. And it really does speak to me, and it speaks to our connectedness. I mean, it's part of, you know, this book isn't why, but my meditation process is what led me to Oneness Unfolding, of creating this series, this meditation books, is that I do see us as universally connected. I do see that we have access to one another through our thoughts. And I think when I hear people like Mark Nepo in their writings, I resonate so much with it. I hear what they're saying and I relate to them. And then I relate to other people, and it grows. So I say, when you find a book that reaches you and connects to you, that's something to meditate upon. There's some truth within that book that speaks to you. And so I encourage people to find that book for themselves. And for me right now, that's Mark Nepo's The Awakening.
Cool. All right, Kerrie, tell the people where we can find you, or where they can find you. They want to look you up and again, follow your journey, started on their own journey.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm on onennessunfolding.com, and my podcast is on all podcast providers pretty much. And if there is one that doesn't have me, let me know. I'm happy to get involved with that too. But Spotify, Apple, Amazon, it's all out there on Oneness Unfolding. And I appreciate so much you guys talking to me about this and engaging with this conversation, because it supports one another, right? It's supporting our community, our world. We need help right now to move us past this pandemic phase that we're in, that's really challenged our mental awareness and mental thoughts. And I don't know, I'm just deeply appreciative of all the work you guys do.
No problem.
Kerrie,
we appreciate what you're doing.
Before you close out, I know it's only a minute, but could you invite us into a 1-minute meditation, invite us into our breath as we leave? Sure. So our listeners can end that way as well.
Sure.
Thank you.
Let's do the box breathing that I've been sort of talking about. And what that is, and you'll grow in your awareness. Like, you can grow with your breath. It may only be 3 breaths, but we're going to try for 4 breaths today and see how everybody does. And so the idea is you release all the air. We'll do this together at once, but I just want to walk you through it. We'll release all the breath out of our lungs. We'll take in a breath for 4 breaths, counting to 4. We'll hold it for 4. We'll release it for 4. And then we're going to leave it empty for 4. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Great.
Okay, let's do that. So everybody just empty your breath. Just take a deep breath out, big sigh out. Okay, now begin breathing in for a count of 4, and I'll count. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Release. 2, 3, 4. Leave it empty. 3, 4. Breathe in again. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. And release. 2, 3, 4. And so that's a simple exercise that you can do. Just creating this box of breath, breathing in, holding, releasing, and leaving it empty. And that allows us to just bring back your centeredness. And the idea is that we would do that for 4 repetitions.
Oh, that was dope. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Kerrie.
Yeah. Thank you for
Kerrie.
blessing us today, Kerrie.
Thank you all. I appreciate you.
All right. Well, you guys have just listened to another episode of The Brain Prophets. And hopefully you've experienced the first, at least I know I have, with the meditation process, doing that box breathing. So you know where to find us. ThinkUpLifestyle.com. You can always see what we're doing there. And then until next time, you know where to find Kerrie as well. You'll see her information in the show notes and show description. And we shall talk to you guys later.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.